All right, back out here in the garage doing a hopefully quick video on the installation of the divider system for the Bonafide Junk Drawer, which you can see we have right here. Um, I've already obviously done the installation on mine. Just going to go through some tips and tricks to make things easier and kind of how I did it. Always open to hearing feedback from people if you find a better way to do it, but this is the way I did it. Seems to work pretty good. Couple things to know, just offhand, these things are going to be warped. They're not precise like some of our other stuff, like for the Black Pack, which has a nice grid system. You know, just looking at this one that I have here, some of these sides, it's injection molded, I believe, or maybe vacuum formed. It's not precise. The holes that are drilled already are not precise. So that, I try to cover that a little bit with some things that we're going to do here. So getting started, the first thing you're going to want to do is assemble the center divider section. This is the most important part because this is really going to line up everything else. I suggest you assemble it like this on a flat surface, and that'll make sure that the bottom surfaces here are all aligned and flat. That'll really help. So again, for assembly, obviously we're going to need a drill and some drill bits I'll get to. I highly recommend using a manual screwdriver. If you have an electric screwdriver, you can use that with caution. Please don't use an impact driver or a drill driver or anything like that, especially for the assembly of this, because you are just putting some sheet metal screws into the plastic itself. You can easily strip that out. Basically, all you do, you're going to have 8 screws on the 2 different sides. Just go around, keep it nice and flat, and snug all those down. Doesn't have to be super tight, but just get them nice and snug. From there, what you're going to do is go ahead and take your junk drawer, remove the track mount assembly off the bottom, and take that hardware out, and go ahead and take this off for a second. And one of the hardware bags you're going to receive, you're going to have 2 screws and 4 lock nuts. What you're going to want to do is reuse the OEM screws that you had for this track mount piece down here, but those are actually going to go to the rear of this system. The front of this system, you're going to use the longer screws that are provided here. But before you even get to that part, what I suggest is go ahead, take all this off. You're going to have 2 screw holes, right below here. Get yourself a 1/4 inch drill bit and go ahead and drill out those holes. They're fairly close, just like these holes here, to a 1/4 inch. But if you drill them out just a little bit, that's going to allow a little more leeway. From there, you're just going to go ahead, put in one of the lock nuts, and go ahead and reassemble this. Let's see if I can get it where you can see it, with just the longer screw hole the longer screw on the bottom, and go ahead and reassemble this for just these 2. Obviously, we're not going to have holes back here just yet. What I do suggest is go ahead and get it nice and snug, and get both of these pretty snug, and then just back it off, maybe a 1/4 of a turn, just so that there's enough play in it to where you can very slightly move this around. What that'll allow you to do is kind of use your fingers under here, and you can kind of feel where it's pretty much aligned. Like I said, it's going to be off. You can see there's a little movement here. Even feeling this one here, it's going to be off a little bit. That's going to be the nature of this whole setup, is it's not going to be perfectly aligned. Some of you out there with severe OCD, just take your time. You'll get it. It'll be functional. The dividers have flexibility in them so that, we can deal with a little bit of misalignment if you don't get it perfect. But again, so go ahead and install this front section here. And then what you can do is, once you get it to where you like it, run yourself a piece of, painter's tape or 2, just to kind of help hold this in place. Not critical, but you can go ahead and do that, and we'll use painter's tape later, obviously, as well. But, you can go ahead and do that. That just kind of helps hold it down. Now, when it comes to drilling some holes, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can use a 5/32 inch drill bit if you have one of those, or just anything smaller than the hole. And I believe that goes up to, let's see, 3/16 will allow you to drill basically the same size as the holes for any of these mounts. So that's, an easy way to do it as well. So again, 3/16 or smaller, go ahead and drill out a hole. And then what you're going to do is actually disassemble this and then drill it out a little bit larger with that 1/4 inch. Again, that gives you just a little bit of play so that once you finally do the reassembly, you can kind of get it lined up to where it's as close as you can to being centered on top of this raised section of the junk drawer. From there, go ahead and snug up all of the screws from the underside. Again, pretty easy to do. The tricky part here is going to be where we go now. So with the dividers, and again, it depends on what package you decide to go with on this. We have this available where you can get just the center section if that's all you want, just to kind of have a couple divisions, or you can get it with one or two of our acrylic dividers here. And I'll just make note, it does get a little thin in here. If you ever run into any issues with these dividers, just reach out to us. We'll figure something out, get you up and running again. Because these can break, obviously a little thinner. If you got some gear sliding around, your drawer slides in your kayak and something crashes into it, if something happens, reach out to us. Anyway, moving on. So the next step, this is kind of where it gets tricky, but if you get the full package with the 5-slot mount and everything, what you'll be able to do is we have 7 total mounting slots here. Each divider will come with a set of, I don't know what I did with the other one. Oh, I've got it right there. We'll come with a set of these single mounts too. So with the 5-slot and then the single mounts that come with each divider, you can utilize all 7 locations if you want. That said, I don't know how often people are going to want a little tiny space like that, but it's there. For me, the basic idea that I'm assuming is most people are probably going to want to divide somewhere here in the middle, and that's where getting the full kit with the 5-slot is really going to be beneficial. So basically at this point, once you have the center section installed, and obviously I've already got this one installed, but I'll show you how to do that. The way I recommend doing it is to go ahead and put your dividers in, and then what you're going to do is take your 5 slots and just kind of install them, and you'll see that it'll actually slide down, and it should sit real nice in a nice area where it's pretty much ready to install. Now you can go through and kind of if you want, make sure that the dividers are nice and lined up. Again, there's plenty of flexibility, so if you don't get it perfect, don't sweat it. But you want to try to just align it as close as you can to where it's going to be. From there, grab yourself some more painter's tape and just kind of lock this in place, just so it doesn't slide around too much. Because you are going to have to remove those dividers to be able to drill this out at all. It's going to be tricky, depending on what kind of drill you have. But once you have this kind of locked in place, you could also take a marker, mark those holes, and then remove this and drill them. It's kind of up to you. I would even recommend, running a piece of tape down to the bottom, just kind of hold it in place as best you can. I'm just kind of going through this quickly. Again, not rocket surgery here, but you want to take your time, make sure you get it aligned as best you can. At that point, again, if you use a 3/16 inch drill bit, you can drill straight through this hole. That should keep it nice and centered. Or if you want to use a smaller one, because if you can't get your drill in here, the other option would be tape these off really, really well, remove this section again, and then that will really allow you to be able to get your drill here. Because obviously with this installed, it's going to be hard to get a drill way down here. Again, a little bit of work, but I think if you tape it off really nice, mark those holes just to be safe if you want. That'll just avoid a little bit of extra work. Once that's done, again, drill it out 3/16 or smaller, remove this, drill it out to 1/4 inch, which will just increase that hole a little bit, which is what it's gonna do. You can see how I've got this loose. It's installed but loose. So we've got a little bit of play here to where you can do some fine tuning at the end. And again, if you mess up and don't get it completely perfect, you know, it's just plastic. So you could even take a drill bit and kind of, make those holes a little oblong. You know, we've all probably messed with that at some point or another. But I mean, that's pretty much it. So then at that point, you're just going to take your machine screws and lock nuts and a small washer, install these side plates, these the 5-slot mounts, or if you want to utilize, different areas depending on how you lay out your gear, and you want to have the full, spectrum, you can also install these single slots. If you don't install them, just hang on to them. One thing to mention, I did just see these. The OEM track here does have these little plastic washers. You no longer need these, so you can hang on to them, throw them in one of the little parts baggies, just get rid of them. You don't need those now with the new hardware you'll be getting. But that's pretty much it. Pretty straightforward. Once you have everything installed, depending on how far you want to take this, you now have, multiple slots where you can now divide up your gear and, set it up however you think you want it. I always suggest with any of the divider systems, kind of lay out your gear first, get an idea of where you want it, and then, especially even before you start placing these, then that'll show you where your dividers can go. And then, figure out what you want. If you want to have maybe some tackle boxes standing up here, however far back they go, well, now you know what kind of gear you want to lay out. So, that's pretty quick. Just trying not to make too long of a video. As always, reach out with any questions. Happy to help provide some examples if you want to know kind of how to do this, or if you want to do it a different way. Pretty straightforward. Happy that somebody reached out and needed this, and so I think this will really be a benefit to a lot of people. So thank you much.